All right. In this video, I want to talk about the restrictions being lifted and my 2 cents on that and what I think is going on. And I'm going to speak from personal experience. But I have to speak also in a bit of code because I can't use certain words and phrases on certain social sites without getting flagged and taken down. So I'm going to try to do that so that I can post this on YouTube or Facebook and some other places like that that normally wouldn't allow me to do so without giving me a hassle anyway. But anyway, when this whole thing really started breaking out in, was it 2020-ish, where we have uh, this boogeyman going around, giving everybody these symptoms and stuff. Wasn't a problem. Wasn't a problem. Everybody was just getting scared and worried about it, right? And then one family member ended up getting the jibber jabber here, right? And all of a sudden they came down with the boogeyman and it spread. And my wife went and visited and ended up catching it and then spreading it to me. And it sucked for a few weeks. It was like the flu for a couple of days. It felt like crap. Not a lot of energy or motivation. Lost sense of taste and smell for a while. Didn't really want to eat or do much. It sucked for a couple weeks. It was pretty hardcore, but uh, nothing really scary or life-threatening or anything like that. Bounce back. Everything's fine and dandy. What's weird is that same individual went and got the next jibber jabber that's supposed to go with it, even after still getting the boogeyman. I thought that was just stupid being stupid right there, but what are you going to do? Makes no sense, but hey. Anyway, uh, it wasn't a problem for a while, and then another family member went and got the jibber jabber in a different household, and all of a sudden, family members that didn't get it were coming down with it as well, and it spread so that basically all my close family and friends have gotten the boogeyman. But it's interesting because it started soon after somebody got the jibber jabber in all the cases that I know about. And even the people who got the jibber jabber still got the boogeyman, and we're usually the first one to get the symptoms of the boogeyman, right? So, why I think these restrictions are being lifted is because they've gotten to the point where they realize they've gotten everybody they can get to get the boogeyman and all the other connecting boogeyman jibber jabbers that they can get them to get, if you know what I mean. So now they got a good chunk of the population with the boogeyman. And now they can lift restrictions so that you don't have to wear masks. You can go at certain different places now and don't have to keep the social distancing, so that it can spread, and then they can say, see, we told you so, and now they can come back with stronger restrictions because they can put that real big fear into you now because they've already flooded the system with the boogeyman that wasn't even there in the first place until people started putting the boogeyman into themselves, right? And it's basically what they do is they're trying to get close to you. Let's say you're over here where this camera is, and they're the gun, right? And they want to get to you. What they'll do is they'll take 2 steps forward. So they go over to this snorkel, and they come over to the speaker, and you're like, hey, back up. And they'll back up 1 step, right? So what this is doing is basically they put in the restrictions because you got to watch out for the boogeyman. And then you're like, hey, back up. But they don't back up to where they used to be. They just back up to here. And then all of a sudden it's a problem again, but this time it's actually serious. It's a bit more real. And then they jump over to here and they're right up in your face now. And so now if you tell them to back up, oh, where do they back up to? Right where they were when you were telling them to back up, but now it looks like they backed up, but they haven't at all. Because they keep going 2 steps forward, you say something, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So what happens now when they go 2 steps forward? They got you. And they just keep doing that little by little, because if they just went straight for you, you would fight back, you would push back. So they just got to do little increments. And another way you've heard people say it is the frog in the water. If you have a pot that is room temperature and you're just starting to heat it up and you throw the frog in, the frog's not going to jump out. But if you have another pot that's boiling, you throw the frog in, the frog's going to jump out of the boiling water, right? But the thing is if you put that frog in the water that's not boiling yet, it's not going to jump out, and you could slowly boil the water, and the frog won't get out because the frog adjusts to it and doesn't catch on because of the way it's biologically set up to adapt to the water around it. And it will cook without jumping out. And that's what's going on with the world. And making a video like this, I know a lot of people don't really give two shits, especially coming from just some random guy on the internet. It's basically just a joke now, like, oh yeah, some guy on the internet said something, it must be true, ha 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 ha. Yeah, well, you got some common sense, you got a half a brain cell, you could think these things through. Why do you trust the government so wholeheartedly? I mean, I'd hear people talk about how the Democrats get in and they're just a bunch of liars. Republicans get in, they're a bunch of liars. These politicians are bullshit. And they're lying, and they're doing all this stuff. And then you go and trust them. And we see all these other governments do these very harsh things around the world. But we're like, no, not our government. Our government wouldn't do that. And you're all just, to be blunt, really fucking stupid. And it's just disheartening that you all make fun of something like this, someone like me, and you've never really looked into this, because if you looked into different cases, such as where they would give the jibber jabber for the whooping cough, there was a case in California, there was a case in Cincinnati, Ohio, where they were giving these jibber jabbers, and all of a sudden there was an outbreak. It's because you're injecting this virus into yourself, this illness, this disease, and you incubate it. So and they even warn you when you get these jibber jabbers that you're contagious, that you need to stay away from people, but they don't really enforce that kind of thing. Where they put those little warning things and they put it in small print, and then you go and you mess up and you don't listen to that small warning print, and then you try to sue them or anything, and they go, well, we did put it on the warning, and it ain't our fault you didn't read it and didn't follow it. Right? And we can see that these companies are free from liability. And they're free from liability for a couple of reasons. One, they're getting the government to be like, hey, this is an emergency. We don't want any backlash, if something happens with these jibber jabbers. But on top of that, it's like smoking cigarettes or drinking beer or some other alcoholic product. The dangers of doing it. They give you it, but they don't force you to smoke. They don't force you to drink. You do that yourself, right? So the companies who make these jibber jabbers, they're not injecting you and they're not forcing you to take it. So they cannot be liable because it's you who ends up going to buy the cigarettes. You smoke them. You go buy the beer. You drink it. So if you get injured from that, that's on you because you know the risk and you did it to yourself. You're responsible. So when you go and you get the jibber jabber, the only one responsible outside of yourself is the one who's actually giving it to you. So you cannot go after the companies who made it because they didn't make you take it. They didn't force it on you, right? They put out the ingredients, they put out the warning labels, and you trusted the one who was sticking you with it, so you got stuck with it. you can go after them, but good luck, because one doctor getting sued by a bunch of people is not going to have really any money to give you. You're not going to get any kind of real recompense. You're just going to have to deal with the consequences. But the sad thing is that that's what's going to happen. I'm making this video and I realize that even if somebody sees it, they're not going to give two shits, and they're just going to have to deal with the consequence, and the whole world is going to have to deal with it as well. And it's sad, it's frustrating, but hey, it really helps disconnecting from the world and getting ready for Jesus' return and to go home, because this world is shit. It really sucks. It really does. It's just, I don't have the words. But anyway, thanks for watching and take care.